Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Dwarf Fortress with Teemo. I'm going to do a little tutorial about frames per second or ticks per second, specifically how to avoid frames per second and ticks per second deaths. So there's two main things that are going to affect your frames per second. It's items and Dwarven AI. So the more items and creatures that the game is tracking, and the more stuff they're doing, the more your game is going to slow down. And with the dwarves, the more dwarves you have, not only will just the dwarves' existence slow your game, but the amount of stuff that dwarves have to do will slow your game. So if you can see right here, I'm running about 38 frames per second down here. And if you want to see that, first of all, I'll show you that. So if we come in here, we go into settings, under the game, I think it's down in the next section down here. Show frames per second. So this starts off defaulted to no. If you move that over to yes, you'll actually be able to see your frames per second. It's something good to track and just know. If something's taken a while, it might be taking longer than you expect just because your frames per second have dropped. And this gets affected by how much is going on in the game, and your CPU itself will actually run pretty well. You've got kind of a default cap of 50 frames per second. That will go down as you've got more stuff to do. So I'm running about high 30s, low 40s here right now with this current fortress. And I'll show you some of the things that can kind of drop it, so you can watch for that. So first of all, I've got a certain amount of jobs, and as dwarves do jobs, you can see that the frames per second are jumping around. What's most likely happening is dwarves are picking jobs that are kind of far away from them, and they're having to plan out complicated routes to get there, and that makes your frames per second jump all around. Plus, it seems to be whatever you're looking at also can hurt it. So I'm actually looking at behavior going on. You can see actually I've dropped down to 20s and stuff right now. If I just come over here and look at nothing, that's actually going to start raising up the frames per second all on its own. So I'm back all the way up to the 40s, 41, 42, 43, just because I'm looking at nothing, and the game's continuing just how it was. If I come back and look at dwarves again, this should drop back down. You see I'm back into the high 30s. So probably, if I get a bunch more dwarves on the screen, it'll probably drop even more. If I give my dwarves more jobs to do, it will also drop. So right now I'm in kind of the mid, I'm dropping down in the 20s, but the 30s or so. So if I just go ahead and I tell my dwarves, you know what, smooth this, let's come up here, let's smooth all of this. So now I'm down to 25. If the dwarves start doing these tasks and triggering them, it'll help out a little bit. But the more stuff I start to try to smooth, the more tasks on the field there are, the more my dwarves will drop. So I'm down into the 15s, 18s. So that's something you want to avoid, especially with smoothing and engraving. For some reason, those seem to be pretty intensive. So I'm going to take these all back off. So when you're doing smoothings and engravings, you want to be careful how much you designate. There's other jobs that do similar types of stuff, but I'm going to take that all back off and let this game kind of settle back out again. So we're climbing back up, 20s, 30s, mid 30s again. So you can see that you want to be careful with what jobs you set to go about. Also, just what is available. So right now I've got my fortress is closed off to the caverns right now, but I've got this lever here, and this is going to show you kind of what happens when you add a lot more paths. Even if you don't got, like I've designated a lot of this stuff that's out here. You can see all these little locks that my dwarves can't come get this. I've set it so they won't claim it. But even with that, there's still jobs that could happen out here. There's calculations the dwarves might run. Come on, pull the lever. So, see I'm in mid-30s. I open this up, and the dwarves are going to start thinking about what's in the caverns. And as they just think about the caverns, and the caverns open to them, you're going to see this drop back down. It takes a few seconds usually. Let's see. might have to give them a couple jobs here. Oh no, it's... So there we go. We're 20s, mid-20s. So the dwarves are just thinking about jobs out here in the caverns. They're checking their pathing through the caverns from time to time. And if especially if I start giving them jobs back out here. So claim. These all back. Yeah, 16, 15. So we're starting to get a lot more pathing calculations, especially into these caverns, because they're trying to figure it out. If I were to give them jobs, not even here, let me go back to getting those, but if I were to come and follow these caverns all the way out over here and say, cut down some of these trees. Oh man, my frames per second are dying from this. That would kill it even more. So you want to be careful about having the caverns open. It's sometimes good to... Where am I? It's sometimes good to, when you open a cavern, if you want to use some of it, close the rest of it off. If you're not going to use it at all, just close your cavern. Because you don't want to have your dwarves doing pathing calculations through it. So I think they know it's closing, so it's already stopping the calculation. Not sure why it jumped back up so quickly there. But once this cavern closes, it'll settle back off. And oh no, you got trapped outside, you silly dwarf. But the frames per second, you know, I'm back up in the mid-30s. I could open this up again and have them come back out. Alright, I don't even know why you went out there, buddy. Got no jobs out there. Alright, no. Don't do that again. Alright. So I gotta close back up. Oh, let time run. And, you know, we're back up to the mid-30s. I got a dog stuck out there. You stupid dog. So I'm probably gonna go save that dog. I'll probably open up the door again, make a little pasture, have the dog come in, and close it back up. But you see, I'm skirting in and out of the 30s again. It's because I've got this giant bat and this dog. So they're units that are pathing around that are in my fortress, and the dog is dropping my frames per second out. So I'm gonna have to go save him and get him back in and get my units not out in the caverns again. But those are some little things that affect it. Also, you can see I only have 14 pop. If I was running a high pop, like 150 dwarves, and I opened up a large cavern like this with a bunch of jobs, it would just crater my frames per second almost instantly. Especially if I had a bunch of jobs designated. So say I had, you know, a whole bunch of logs to go grab somewhere. I designated some trees and I opened it up. So you got to be kind of careful, especially once you get later what you have open. You have a lot more room if you've got a better CPU. My computer's kind of getting a little older, so I have to kind of be a little bit more careful than some people with it. So if you've got a newer rig, you've got a lot more space until you start hitting this. But even with the best computers out there right now for PCs, if you get a big pop and a big cavern, you're still going to run into issues. So I recommend just getting into good habits until we all start running supercomputers to try to avoid getting into those single-digit frames per second, because sometimes you could get such a low frames per second that you can't really recover it. It just stays so low, and the dwarves move so slow that it's almost faster to restart and build a new fortress than it is to try to recover that one. So good luck out there. Hopefully this helps a little bit understanding what you're working up against. Besides just fighting monsters and trying to feed your dwarves, you also got to make sure that your computer survives it. So that's it for tonight. If you got any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good night.